Can you guys see my whole name?
Yes. All right.
Get on
Thanks
my.
for tuning in once again. It's Ishmael Sistrunk from the St. Louis American and STLamerican.com. And we're here today with this week's In the Clench boxing hangout. With me today, I got Mike Dickson, who just left the screen, came back in. My normal co-host, Mike, thanks for being here. And
Great to be here.
we got a man who hasn't been with us for a minute, Mr. Mercedes Roach, always the life of the party. And starting off today, nonetheless, this week we got a couple things to talk about, a couple interesting fights that have happened over the last couple of weeks. I think first, let's talk about, we'll talk about the bigger fight, Canelo Alvarez, Saul Canelo Alvarez and Erislady Lara. That fight happened last week, of course. Mike, I know you just saw it this weekend, so that's why we waited to talk about it. A split decision for Canelo. One of the cards, I think, was 117 or 111 or 110. A lot of controversy about that card. The fight in itself wasn't all that interesting, but it was an interesting dynamic. The fight was boring. It wasn't a lot of toe-to-toe action, which a lot of people like, but an interesting dynamic. You had a pure boxer against a guy who's more known as a brawler. Now, Mike, we talked a little bit before the show. You said you thought Erislady Lara probably won that fight. Tell us why.
Because Canelo wasn't landing. I'm not going to scream bloody murder or anything like that, but I mean, we've been watching it long enough, and we kind of know how this thing plays out. Canelo puts the butts in the seat, so I think he was given the benefit of the doubt on a lot of close rounds. I can't remember all of the judges' scorecards, but one of the judges was, as usual, it seems to be the case here a lot lately. One of the judges' cards was just, evident that he was watching a totally different fight. I think either way, either side of the fence you land on, I think everybody will agree that it was a close fight. But just watching, although it was excruciating to watch as far as an entertainment level. If we're gonna go on fairness, it just looked like the punches that were landed, the majority of them were done by Lara. He did do a lot of running. I'm not going to argue that, but it seemed like he would, 1-2 went out. However, for whatever reason, he had early on he had a heat seeker, a heat finder on that left hand, and I thought he tagged him a couple times with it. I mean, he didn't knock him down, he didn't stagger him or anything like that, but he was landing. Canelo, on the other hand, you kind of saw him coming forward and forcing the action and applying pressure, but it wasn't what you would call effective aggression. He didn't seem to be landing too cleanly, especially upstairs. He did do some good body work, but I just thought that scoring a fight on a round-by-round basis, that Lara probably did edge him and probably deserved the nod.
Roach, did you see the fight? And if so, what did you think about it?
I had more important things to do, like sleep. I saw the replay was coming on Saturday, and I forgot the fight was even supposed to happen the week before, and I just went to bed, man, because the way I look at it is, and this sounds so crazy, or it might sound a little off, but did anything in that fight really shock you? Were you surprised? Yeah,
No.
I'm asking you, were you okay? Exactly. See, I'm at the point of time right now, and the boxing fan that I am, I'm not hardcore. I might be a level. I'm not average. I'm above average. I might be hitting 300 or 310. You cats are hitting 400. And so the way I look at it is, I'm a little different than the casual fan that has to have the marquee names. I know about the fighters. I watch them, watch Friday night fights and all. Shoot, I even watch fights on the NBC Sports Network and the CBS Sports Network. So I consider myself a little more than a casual fan. But I'm at the point now where I look at fights and I look at the matchup on paper, and if it's not interesting, I'd rather go to Bishop Sheets Church, my bed. And because it's just not I mean, really. And if you think about Canelo, man, this is really where he's at right now in his career was set up when he started. You look at from when he started to where he is now. Anybody that is a smart boxing fan that's watched boxing for a while, that kind of knows and seen this story before, where you see a guy, I mean, basically, he was, as was like with everybody, they were handpicking him, but it wasn't like they were putting him in the ring with danger. And so as his competition stepped up, uh, his skills have pretty much stayed the same. Have you really seen an improvement from him and in his fighting over the last 2 years, 3 years? Have you
Yeah,
seen him?
but before you diss him too much, you know, I mean, you got to look
No,
at.
I haven't dissed him enough.
Well,
That was terrible, man. That was terrible. When I did see what the score was, the scorecards were, and I believe that scorecard that was off, that was a Mexican judge, wasn't it?
Yep.
maybe
Okay.
so, but
Same story.
without you seeing the fight, then I really can't take your opinion on that
No.
too seriously.
No.
Because well, hold on, wait a minute. I'm a step up in defense of that judge, you know, who had that crazy scorecard, and a lot of people have screamed bloody murder and said, man, he doesn't know, you know, like Mike said, he doesn't know what he's looking at. I'll tell you, I scored the fight 116 to 112 for Canelo. I thought it was a close fight. I wouldn't have been mad if Lara had a decision, but if I scored it that way, Dan Raphael from ESPN also scored it that way. So if I would have given one more of those,
I think Dougie Fisher was something similar to that too.
yeah, Dougie Fisher, he might have been 115, 113, I believe. Could have been 116, 112, but I think he was 115, 115, 113, which a lot of, when you look at the majority of the boxing press, that's what it was. It was 115 to 113 either way, you know, or they had it a draw. And there were some that had it one more round. So for me, could I have found another round to give Canelo? Yes, I didn't, you know, but you have to look at the styles. You say it wasn't an interesting matchup at all. I think the matchup was interesting because anytime you have that brawler versus boxer, it makes you think, okay, how's this going to work out? Who's going to win? Is the boxer going to be able to, you know, stay away? Is the brawler going to catch up to him and hit him? I don't think it played out well. I think you're right. You said you fell asleep. You decided just to go to sleep. I literally fell asleep a little bit during that fight and woke up and went back and finished it. But for me, it was that Lara was using his lateral movement, going side to side. But every time he stopped to throw punches, he would throw 2 punches. That's it. He'd throw a jab and a straight and move again. And he'd never really stopped to engage. I would have no problem giving that fight to Erislady Lara if he'd have maybe thrown 3 punches at a time, or, you know, threw 4 punches every once in a while. But the fact that you just moving so much, Mike, you said Canelo really wasn't, he didn't have effective aggression, and I agree with you. But as far as Lara, he really had no aggression. He didn't want to fight at all. His whole game plan was movement. Let me get out the way. Let me get out the way. And when you look at the statistics, the punch stat numbers, Lara landed 10 more punches. He landed 107 punches to Canelo's 97. You know, percentage-wise, it was 23% to 28%. So any way that you look at it, those numbers are comparable. That's almost even. But when you take into account that Canelo was throwing hard punches, that he was trying to make the fight, I think he gets the edge there.
Yeah, I'm a guy that tends to favor the guy that's making the action too. But I think in this case, like I say, you can't scream bloody murder on either side. It was a close fight. It wasn't entertaining, but it was close. But I mean, just the missing that Canelo was doing was alarming. I mean, we're talking about he was loading up. He obviously was frustrated, and he obviously was trying to put a little hurt on there. But it just didn't translate to scoring. So when somebody says that they, you know, do have a 116 or 117 or 118 for Canelo, I just kind of, I mean, the punch stat numbers, the accuracy of those, I don't know, because that's my first time hearing them. I didn't watch them I didn't pay attention to them at the post fight, you know, on the broadcast, them showing the stats, because hearing those numbers, I'm like, I go more or less on what I see. As far as the specific numbers, that didn't look like that would to be the case to me. I know that they're probably saying that a lot of Lara's lead rights and his jabs were probably blocked on Canelo's gloves, but it just seemed like he was making contact. Sometimes Canelo would not make contact at all, on probably 50% of his punches, and he would load up and throw with power, and Lara just wouldn't be there. Was it entertaining that? No. I mean, did it look bad him running? Yeah. But was Canelo landing? No. If you're not landing, I don't know quite how you're scoring. But I mean, it's tomatoes. People look at their things different ways. Like I say, I can't scream robbery for Lara, but I mean, I thought there was some method to his madness, his movement. And it wasn't entertaining. I mean, I definitely wouldn't stay up to watch another Lara fight, but he did prevent himself from receiving too much damage from Canelo and allowing him to score. So unfortunately, it has to count for something.
See, that goes to and even though Ish so eloquently pointed out that I didn't watch the fight, it even still, I mean, Lara, what you're saying, he was throwing one punch, two punch combos and backing
two
off.
Punches every time. Two punch combo every time.
But think about it. But how many fighters are in his mode now that are fighting that same way? Cats that go in, pop, and get out. Pop, and get out. Or you see a guy get in that throws a bunch of punches, but he's not really connected any. You'll see a guy right now, if you look at boxing, man, you have very few guys that either get in and can put multiple combinations together, 2, 3, 4 punches, but actually have some oomph behind them. Or then you've got guys that are volume punchers, and they call these guys action fighters, but the majority of their punches don't hit. They throw a lot of punches, but when they connect, you feel it, you hear it, but they don't throw a lot, which is why I didn't watch the fight, man. Because you see this. I mean, come on. Y'all knew this fight was going to be like this. Come on. You guys are more educated in the fight game than common sense man over here.
No, you're absolutely right, Roach. I mean, and on that level, I have to agree with you. I'm a guy who doesn't miss a whole bunch of fights, but when the fight was announced, I had little or no interest in it, and I think it's absurd that it was on pay-per-view. I mean, I understand what's going on. I understand that Canelo feels he's a star. I understand that in Mexico, which is one of the stronger fight fan bases, that he's huge. But I just had a hard time dealing with the fact that last April, another case of two undefeated fighters, and Canelo versus Trout was on subscription to Showtime cable television. Ended up being a much better fight.
On pay-per-view.
Yeah, and then a year later, which all Canelo did was lose to Mayweather and ground and pound a beat up Angulo. Now all of a sudden you're expected to pay $55 for it. I just really had a hard time wrapping my head around that, or obliging to that. So no, and the type of matchup isn't the one type of one that you might want to go in your pocket for, or run to your local bar, or go in with your buddies for. And that's something that I think from here on out you probably won't see with Canelo, because he's a moneymaker. This is in his last, 3 out of his last 4 fights, he fought a close fight with another boxer that had a similar outcome, Austin Trout versus Canelo. You had him kind of get taken to school by Floyd. You had him beat up Angulo, who was tailor-made for him, and then you had him in with another close. So I mean, I think if they want to keep this meal ticket going, they got to stay away from this style for Canelo, because as a young fighter, he hasn't shown that he's able to adapt to it yet.
And they will. I don't think they really wanted to match him up with Lara in the first place. I think he wanted that fight. Lara had come to a couple of his fights, press conferences, talking stuff. So I think this was a matter of Canelo saying, okay, hey, this is the boogeyman. Everybody's saying nobody wants to fight him. He's coming up. He disrespecting me. Let me fight him. Let me get out. Let me get him out of there. So I understand his desire. I give him credit for taking that matchup, because a lot of people don't want to fight Lara.
No, time out. I'm not letting you get away with that. No, you don't get credit for taking a matchup with a guy can't stretch you possibly. That's not credit.
No, it doesn't.
A pitter-patter fest.
It doesn't matter about whether or not they stretch you. It's a matter of whether you think you can beat that style. Like Mike said, he had, some trouble with Austin Trout, escaped there with a close victory. Floyd Mayweather, boxed his sleeves off, so we know that he has trouble with boxers. And I said in my column about this, I said Canelo couldn't cut off the ring with a chainsaw in this fight. So it's a style that's going to give him problems. When you're looking at boxers today, it's not about whether or not I'm going to get knocked out. It's whether or not I'm going to get a win, whether or not I can, expand my pay-per-view brand and all of that. So you got to give him credit for taking a tough opponent. Lara is universally regarded as one of the top guys in that class.
But that's not tough. Hello?
Why is it not tough? It's not. You're not going to get knocked out, but it's still a tough matchup.
That's not tough. Look here, man. What would you? And let me take it to the sport I love. Let's take it to football. Who would you rather face? A team? Who would you take your chances against? A team that throws the ball all over the place and you can't stop, or a team like Auburn that gets up and just runs the ball no huddle straight down your throat and takes your soul out your chest? Which one of those do you get credit for playing and putting on your schedule?
It's completely different. Football and boxing are completely different. Now there's so much of a focus on winning, and how much a loss hurts somebody. Me personally, I don't care. I want to see all the good fighters, tough fighters fight each other. But amongst the boxers, they're all about winning. Amongst the promoters, they're all about winning. When you look at the guys who have been kind of universally regarded as the boogeyman, people that nobody wanted to fight. You look at, Bernard Hopkins held that title for a while. He's not a guy that knocks people out. He has an ugly style. He has a difficult style. You look at Winky Wright. He was that guy for a while where nobody really wanted to fight him. These guys with tricky styles, often southpaws, that they just make ugly fights. Canelo, look at it. After the fight, he won the fight. It was a close fight, disputed or whatever. He won the fight, but it was a boring fight. So it's like a lose-lose. Even though he won, he didn't get credit. Nobody's like, oh, he got this exciting knockout. I want to see him next time. And if he would have lost, it would have been the same. So that's why fighters talk about, man, that's a lose-lose fight. Like, even if I win, people going to say it was boring, or I might lose, and then I, lose this momentum that I gained. So that's why you got to give him credit for taking a fight against a tough opponent that he knows that he's not going to look good against.
So you're saying, from the perspective of that a tough fight, I'm taking a guy that I'm going to have a difficult time fighting. That's what makes it tough. I'm not worried about him hurting me because I know he can't hurt me. But it's difficult because I might not be able to get to him to hurt him.
It's a difficult fight.
But do you understand how backwards that is in the fight game?
Not really. I mean, you're looking at it from a point of, I don't want to get hurt. But not everybody.
No. Not from I don't want to get hurt. I'm fighting a guy that, I'm fighting a guy that I know on his best day, if he hits me, he can't knock me out.
I don't even know that. Lara is not known as a power puncher. I don't think Laura's like Paulie Malignaggi or Corey Spinks, where they just have no power at all. I mean, when you look at Canelo's face after the fight, Lara did a little bit of damage to it. So I think Lara has a little power, but he's more of a defensive fighter. He's not trying to knock guys out. He's trying to hit and not get hit.
I guess that's what I'm saying. It's like Mike taught me, and I always give him credit for this. Canelo fought a guy that didn't have a get up off me punch.
That's not true.
And when I say that, I mean, if I keep coming in here and I keep getting hit, I don't mean just getting sting. It's a difference between getting hit and stung, but I mean get hit to the point where if I keep coming in here, I'm gonna be in trouble.
Well, man, I just don't think you've seen Lara fight enough on that, man, because I think Lara, he has some pop. He's not sitting on his punches. He's not trying to get guys out of there. He's more worried about boxing. Mike, you can elaborate or tell your opinion on that, but I don't think that's really accurate.
Yeah, I'll speak on it so we can move on, because I gotta kind of side with my man Ishmael on this. I think on both instances, I think it is to Canelo's credit, and because it is a risk, not just a physical risk. We know like it said, boxing is marketed on records. I mean, should it be? No. But unfortunately, a lot of emphasis is put on a winning record, and Canelo was undefeated. And to his credit, this is the second time he's fighting. Ishmael used the perfect example: Bernard Hopkins and Winky Wright, guys that are avoided because they're stinkers, they're spoilers, and you know they'll get in there and they know every trick in the trade, and they know 100 more, and they'll get in there and they'll make it ugly, and they'll take you out of your game plan and your mix, and before you know it, they done slipped you an L. So I think he does deserve credit for that because it's the second time he's done it in about a year and a half. Nobody was beating down the door to fight Trot or Lara, and I also got to agree with him. I think Lara might be able to punch a little bit better than you give him credit for, Roach. I mean, he was 19 wins with 12 knockouts coming into the fight, and I saw what he did to Angulo's face, and Ronald Hearns is not. I mean, he's destroyed a few guys early, and he's did a number on some other ones. There were spots in there. It took a while to get going, but I mean, he kind of started roughing up Austin Trot a lot in there late in their fight too. So, is he a Angulo or a Golovkin type puncher? No, but is he a Malignaggi? I don't think that's fair either.
No, I'm not saying he is that by no means. Nobody's that soft.
All right, well, well, actually, the last thing I want to say about that fight, we were talking punch stats earlier, and, I said, Mike, you said you didn't see the stats. I'm looking at them right now. Canelo landed 97 out of 415 punches. That's 23%. Lara landed 107 to 386. Again, that's 28%. The eye-popping number is, you talked about the body shots earlier, that's all Canelo really landed. Well, he landed 73% of his body shots. And I think over 50 punches, about half of Lara's punches were jabs. So, when you get down and break it down and look at it, you're talking about, okay, a guy who landed mostly jabs versus a guy who landed power shots to the body. Now a lot of times body shots are overlooked a little bit because everybody wants to see those head shots. But when you land in power shots to the body at a clip of 73%, even if you miss the head, I just think that aggression gives him the nod. That's how I scored the fight. But again, I think it could have went either way, and I really hate when I heard people say, man, this is a robbery. You see a lot of memes, man, this is, it was set up from the beginning. I don't think so. It was a ugly fight. It was tough to score, but I think it was close. And anything within that realm, I think you give credit for. Anything else anybody want to say on that fight before we move on?
Yeah, I'm glad I got some good sleep.
All right, so now this past weekend, this is actually the more recent fight, but not too many people saw it. Wasn't televised. Guillermo Rigondeaux had a first-round stoppage. He's a guy that you don't really associate with a first-round knockout. Man, I'm about to do a Mike Dickson on this one and jack up the name. Kokietgym, the fighter that he fought, Sod Kokietgym or something to that extent. Mike, have you seen the clip of that knockout, that first-round knockout from Rigondeaux?
All I know is Golovkin fights this weekend. Hey man, I ain't talking about no Rigondeaux first round knockout in Macau, China that wasn't televised.
Let me tell you what happened, because
this dude is magna cum laude as far as uninteresting fights.
No,
but where he deserved to be off the air. I appreciate skill, but he just takes it to another level. I hear he destroyed the guy in one round. I didn't even try to find a clip. It is what it is.
Let me tell you what happened. Why it's noteworthy for the conversation is because what happened is, in this fight, there was an accidental headbutt that occurred. Rigondeaux headbutted the guy. The guy was hurt. He was really hurt. So the referee stopped. Gave him a few seconds to collect himself, and upon the resume of the action, the guy reached up to touch hands, and Rigondeaux, I think he touched his hand real quick, and then he hit him with a jab and left, and it was over like that. Like he went down. My issue with that, you know, a lot of people said, "Oh, that's dirty," you know, which it was a little sketchy. It was a little sketchy. It wasn't against the rules, you know, protect yourself at all times. My issue was with the referee, you know, the official. Clearly, the guy was hurt by the headbutt. He went down, you know, like a sack of bricks. The referee pretty much rushed him into coming back. You're supposed to get 5 minutes. If you get hurt by an accidental headbutt, you're supposed to get 5 minutes to recuperate. The fighter got, you know, maybe
That
20
ref was trying to
seconds,
get a check.
15 to 20 seconds. The ref was like, all right, come on. And as soon as they got back, Rigondeaux hit him with a straight left, and it was over. You know, so I feel bad for the guy. He was going to lose anyway, but I feel bad for the fact that you get an illegal headbutt that you're injured from, you don't get the proper time to recover, and then your opponent knocks you out. Now, again, I think with Rigondeaux, you know, he took advantage. He saw that little opportunity to get out of there, say, I got a knockout, so I'm not mad at him. But, you know, it was a little sketchy.
Yeah, the ref was trying to get a check. He's trying to get that trash out of his ring. And
Right,
move
all
on.
right.
I'm like Mike. I'm like Mike. Next, please.
Well, y'all got to go and look at that. Y'all got to see that clip because I really want to see what y'all got to say about it. The fight went like a minute and a half, so it's not like it's going to take a long time of your life. But anyway, moving on. So got Gil and Golovkin. Golovkin is a guy who's kind of beloved. HBO has been building him up as this guy. You know, Terminator. He's been, you know, stretching guys when he gets that opportunity. Mike, how do you? Or let's go with Mercedes first. Mercedes, are you looking forward to this one? You said you were bored on the first fight on Rigondeaux. You're bored on Lara, Canelo. Are you bored on this fight?
Let me give you my history with me, yours truly, and Gennady Golovkin. Picture this: Saturday night, dozing off on the couch, falling asleep. Friday night, boxing after dark zone. I kind of wake up. I hear Madison Square Garden, and I open my eyes and see this Russian doing the pads in the back. Next thing I know, he goes to the ring. I'm kind of half up. I look, and boom! And from that point on, I've been a fan of his. I've been a fan of his. Look, man, you need to understand. Look. I like all the art, the artistry of boxing. I like the jab, all of that's necessary. In fact, I'm a big fan of body work, probably more than the average person. I think body work is just how you take somebody's soul, how you take their heart. But that man Golovkin, I'm riding with him, man. Just because I'm a fan. I'm a fan of a guy that's not just an action fighter that throws punches in bunches, but he throws punches with viciousness to connect, and he's accurate. He's just not throwing and missing and hitting the arm and hitting the glove when it's up. No, he's connecting, and he's I'm a fan of his, man. And until I see different, that's just how I feel about him, man. Plain and simple. So I will be up. That's the question. I will be up. I will be watching it. I'll go get me an order of Chick-fil-A. I sit down on the floor, watch it, cool out. Me and the dog. He'll eat some fries. I'll eat some fries, and we'll watch a good. Hopefully, Golovkin do what he does. I'm a big fan of his, man, and I'm not a fan of a lot of individual boxers. You know, I'm not a fan of a lot of guys. You know, I like to watch guys. Yeah.
All right, Mike. What do you think about it, Mike?
Well, I think he's entertaining, man. Like kind of like my man Rose said. I mean, I think he brings it. You can appreciate that, especially coming off a week where coming off the Rigondeaux fight and the Lara fight. It's a breath of fresh air to see a guy that's got, like I said earlier, effective aggression and the skill to cutting off the ring and applying pressure and getting guys out of there. I think the fight should be entertaining while it lasts. I think he's going to stop Gil. I did see Gil versus Macklin last year. And I know he had a couple matches with, oh man, I can't remember the name, the other Australian. Okay, that was pointless to bring that up when I can't think of his name. But anyway, I think from what I've seen from Gil, I think he's a solid fighter, durable fighter, but I think he's not going to be savvy enough defensively to get out of the way of what Golovkin brings to the table. I probably would. If I go out on a limb and give a prediction, I probably think mid to late stoppage. I think Gil might be good to hang around, maybe 7th, 8th round. By that time, I think the wear and tear might build up, and Gil might be able to, Golovkin might be able to get him out of there. But on that fight card, I'm also looking forward to a heavyweight fight between Bryant Jennings and Mike Perez. I think as far as guys that have been competing here in the States, not including the overseas guys, the Tyson Furies or whatnot, but I think as far as guys that have been fighting here regularly on television in the States, I think that Mike Perez versus Bryant Jennings is probably one of the more competitive heavyweight matchups that you can make outside of Sturvine and Wilder. I think Jennings is a guy with a lot of upside, another ex-athlete coming over to boxing, kind of late to the game, but I think he's developing. He was a guy that was on NBC Sports, and he started looking good and building up a little momentum, building up a little steam. And I think he's getting close to his peak. And then you have Mike Perez, who's fought his last 3 fights on HBO and has looked pretty decent as well. So I look for a mid to late stoppage with the Golovkin fight, and I look for a close competitive fight with Perez and Jennings, probably with Jennings taking a close 12-round decision.
Okay, well, I'll say, because I'm not going to go too much in depth on the heavyweights. This is where I'm more like Mercedes. For me, if it's not, if it's not, and see even the names. What are the names of the fighters that you just talked about? The main 2 guys that are fighting, Sturvine and
Deontay Wilder,
the Brown Bomber. Yeah, Deontay Wilder.
Yeah. This is really Brian by James and Mike Perez.
Outside of those 2 guys, and of course Klitschko, if he fights a competitive opponent, the heavyweight division, I'm not too excited about any fight in that division. So this one, I'm going to watch it. I'm not excited about it. Wilder is just about, Wilder and Sturvine are the guys who excite me right now. So I'm looking forward to that matchup. This other one, it'll be good. I think Jennings will win. Going to the Golovkin-Gil matchup, I agree with you guys. I like Golovkin. He's an exciting fighter. He goes for the knockouts. I expect him to get a knockout here. Mike, I'm a little surprised because I remember, unless I'm mistaken, Sergey Kovalev. I thought, you said about Golovkin, you've seen a lot of Russian guys before who've been coming and knocking out lesser competition, and you weren't that impressed. I know Gil isn't a world beater, but I'm surprised now that you're like, yeah, you're looking forward to seeing the fight. You think he's a good fighter. But Golovkin, he is who he is. Like Mercedes says, I think his technical skill is more than people give him credit for. He gets a lot of knockouts, but, he's a guy, he can cut off the ring. He knows how to stalk fighters. He knows how to go to the body well. He's not necessarily a big, huge combination puncher, but I think him and Kovalev both, actually, they're kind of similar to where they have more boxing skills than you believe. And he's a good ring general, so I'm looking forward to it, and I think we'll have another knockout.
Hey, the jump on that, yeah, absolutely right, but that doesn't mean I don't like seeing a guy that fights. What was said by that, and I stand by that 100%, and I will continue to. I have seen it a lot, but as of right now, the way he's being matched up, the results are a knockout. I was just talking about this with a guy at work. I said the same thing, probably what you're alluding to. Now, do I think he's going to be an all-time great? I can't say that because a lot of this times you get these guys and they steamroll them, and then they come up against a boxer and they get outclassed. That absolutely could still happen with Golovkin. But in the meantime, he's being matched up accordingly where the fights have produced entertaining matchups, and he's got them out of there. So, yeah, I mean, that's both. You're right both on both ends, and I stand by that. If you see him in there with an Andre Ward or a guy that's going to give him some angles, maybe a earlier version of Sergio Martinez, definitely not now. Yeah, it's not out of the realm that you're going to see him when he take that element is taken away, that bull, strength advantage type advantages are taken away or neutralized. Yeah, the guys get outboxed all the time.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I can see that, but I just wanted to put that out there, because after this fight you might be like Mercedes, and you got your cheerleading palms like, yeah, go Golovkin. So
no cheerleading, and you should throw it out there because when he does get outclassed, which, like I said, we don't know what he really can do. He's stopping guys early, and then when they get in there with that guy where, no, man, you can't really hit me like that, or no, you just can't do what you want to do to me in here. A lot of times those guys get taken out of their comfort zone, and we see them look confused. We've seen it numerous times with a lot of guys. So, yeah, so as far as when those type of matchups come, we'll address those when we get there. As of right now, Daniel Gill, you know, a card-carrying tough guy who's going to stand in front of him more than likely. Good fight.
Good night. Yeah, and you talked about you mentioned Andre Ward. You know, Andre Ward is my guy. I'm a big Andre Ward fan. You know, if you talk about technicians, I think he's a guy. You know, we looked at Lara, you know, throwing 1-2 punches. Andre Ward's a guy, when he's in, he lets his hands go. He throws combinations, and then he gets away, you know, and stays out the way. I don't mind that style. Some people still say that's a boring style, but I feel like, you know, when you're in the pocket, let your hands go, get some combinations off, and then if you have to grab, if you have to move out the way, you know, that's fine. I don't think Golovkin can do anything with Andre Ward, but
let me ask you this.
I don't think anybody can do anything with Andre Ward.
Yeah, so let me ask you this.
Hold on, wait. Before you start, real quick, I need to get a free Andre Ward T-shirt. I need to find somebody that sells those because he's not getting any fights. He's got his beef with his promoter, so he's not getting any fights right now. I want to see.
Well, you can find somebody that's selling them, but I ain't gonna buy it because. First of all, Andre Ward need to keep it real on what it is, and he wants to beef with Dan Goosen about he's not doing this and he's not doing that. But hey, man, sometimes you got to know your role and play your damn position. He doesn't have an entertaining style, and if you put him on pay-per-view, he's going to buy it. So I mean, what really does he want?
Man,
he's making good paydays. He's on HBO. I mean, I don't know what he expects. It really is. You got 3 or 4 guys that can carry a pay-per-view. Marquez for all his skills, and now he's turned it since he's got his fresh supply of steroids. He's turned into a entertaining knockout fighter. You got Cotto, Mayweather, and Pacquiao, and Marquez. Canelo. That's it. I mean, where he fits into that, I don't know. I mean, who you gonna put him on pay-per-view against?
But,
I mean, I'm just lost. What does he really want? How does he expect things are supposed to be going now?
Well, you can match him up. When you talk about pay-per-view, you can match him up with a guy like Golovkin on pay-per-view. You know, you can match him up with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. You can get them on pay-per-view. Those will sell. When you're looking at Andre Ward,
and who gets him if he's on pay-per-view for Chavez Jr. Who do people paying to see?
Chavez. Exactly what I said.
So if he's not against Chavez Jr., who are you going to put him in there to make him? I don't know. See, guys, you know what? I got an 8-year-old, and we started watching wrestling again.
Preach.
Boxing, UFC, and wrestling. The best doesn't mean highest paid, biggest draw. That's it.
Absolutely.
You got John Cena, stiff as hell. Guys that wrestle circles around him. Why is he leading the pay-per-views? He's the most popular. He's the most entertaining. Same thing with MMA. You got guys, not necessarily the best, but they're entertaining. They keep getting headlining fights. Andre Ward is probably the second best boxer on the planet right now.
Yep.
But he's not the most entertaining. So I mean, I just think guys got to understand that. And he's doing a lot of whining. He's doing a lot of complaining. He's always hurt. And it's just getting a little old, and this woe is me, this should be that. Hey, man, you're a fighter, fight.
Well, you know what?
Contract is down, you bounce, you do what you want to.
I think Ward's issue, Ward needs to sell more of his personality because
he doesn't have one.
Well, he needs to develop one. He needs to make one up like Floyd did. You know, when you look at it, yeah, not that.
He's getting $1 million guaranteed purse. Keep winning. Opponents will come along. When the big fight is there, you'll get there. Dan Goosen is a promoter, not a miracle worker. There's nothing that Bob Arum, Golden Boy, main events, or anybody else is going to do any differently than Andre Ward, and he'll see that. Except for maybe a Chavez Jr. fight, and that's because, again, the Mexican draw that would tune in to see, hey, let's see how Junior does.
But you got to look at it like this. When you're Andre Ward, you look at the guys who, you know, some of the guys at the top that you name, or maybe that you didn't, you know, Mayweather. Mayweather doesn't have a exciting style, you know, whatsoever, but he has this big over-the-top personality, which is what his draw is, and that undefeated record. Bernard Hopkins has made, good money, has had some high-profile fights. Bernard
Not
Hopkins
from
isn't,
pay-per-view.
he's
When was
not
the
an
last time he was on
exciting
pay-per-view?
fighter.
Not from pay-per-view, he hasn't.
When was the last time he was on pay-per-view?
I don't know. My
There
memory
you
isn't
go.
the
He's
best
been on
at.
Showtime or HBO collecting checks. I believe his last
Exactly.
pay-per-view might have been Joe Calzaghe back in 08.
Right?
Right. Can you guys still hear me?
And I guarantee you that ain't cracked 400,000.
Yeah, we can hear you, Mercedes.
Okay, I didn't know because my thing is these new headphones. No, I agree with you, man. Mike, you took the mic straight out my hand and aced that joker, man. Because I think Andre Ward, man, is an excellent fighter. I think most importantly, I think he's a great dude, but I think he is a horrible entertainer in the ring. And when it comes to, you know what, boxing, all sports, skill is great, but it's entertainment is what it is. It's entertainment, and if you can't entertain me, I could care less how well your skills are. And when it comes to the draw, like hey Mike, what Jim Ross say? Every 12 inches.
You got to be able to put a butt every 12 inches, man. You got to be able to fill them seats
And
up.
Andre,
I tell you this, when you want to talk about fights people fall asleep on, his comeback fight after being on for another 18-month layoff against Edwin Rodriguez, I fell asleep through that.
Yes,
Got up, went to work, heard about the result, and never watched the last 4 or 5 rounds or whatever I missed. Because I knew what I missed. I knew rounds 8 through 12 probably looked just like rounds 1 through 4. It was jab, hard punch, clinch, little separation, maybe a little bottle work, separation. I mean, like Bro said, what happened in that fight that I didn't expect? There were no knockdowns, there were no violent exchanges. It was the same thing. And you got to ask myself, well, okay, I kind of figured that's how I go. Another Andre Ward 12-round decision. Do I really need to waste 30 minutes watching in this fight, or do I kind of know how it went? And I mean, and that's just what it was.
Man, let me tell you. Let me make it real plain to you. If Roy Jones Jr., who was one of the greats of all time, spent the majority of his career fighting on HBO on Saturday nights, getting a nice paycheck, and not going the pay-per-view route, what makes Andre his style? At least he was a little more, had a little bravado or something to it that might make you want to watch. If he stayed on HBO, what makes Andre Ward think that he can go to pay-per-view and sell anything?
Well, I think
he's not going to carry a fight. Like Mike said, if he fights Chavez, it's going to be Chavez. Anybody, if he fights Golovkin, it's going to be Golovkin. It's not going to be Andre. And like Mike said, he keeps whining. And, I hate to say it, man, but I agree with Mike, man. It's getting irritated.
But I think Ward's biggest gripe, y'all are going under the impression his biggest gripe is he's not getting pay-per-views every time out. I think his bigger gripe is that he's had the achievement that he's had, especially going through that
Super
Six tournament and coming out unscathed. I think he's fought everybody that's anybody except these new guys finally coming up on the scene. Emerged unscathed, and he's still not a household name. Now, some of that is on him. Some of that is because, he doesn't leave California very often. I don't know if that's him or if that's Goosen. Some of it's that, he's not real out there with his personality. He's more of a reserved guy, a humble guy. But I understand his plight where, look, I'm undefeated. I've run through all these guys, and you see, like I said, Mayweather, Hopkins, all these other guys who are household names, and he's not necessarily there. Part of that is his fault. He re-signed with Goosen. So I'm not saying that it's all Goosen's fault, but I understand his frustration, and he wants to get to that next level, and that's his promoter's job, is to get him to that next level.
No,
what do you think?
It's his job to go in the ring and put an entertaining fight on, and then maybe he'll go to the next level, and he won't need the promoter to do it for him.
So what do you think could be done differently, Ish?
Well, number one, and again, I don't know if this is him or if this is Goosen. I think he needs to be in Vegas, instead of fighting in California all the time. He needs to get to Vegas, but he needs that headline fight, another headline fight. He needs to get in there with a guy like Chavez, or he needs to get in there against a guy like Golovkin, who Golovkin's going to be coming to knock him out. So that's going to be an entertaining fight, even if he's the boxer even if he's the one that's getting chased. But he needs to get a nice high-profile fight. Edwin Rodriguez, you know, that was a comeback fight, so you
But
give him a little credit.
Dixon make those guys fight him?
He can't, but if he's not gonna make those guys fight him, then he needs to get somebody that Andre Ward is really gonna look good about. People in boxing have short memories. You can see a guy struggle against 3 or 4 fighters. You put a guy that they can get out of there, make a decently interesting fight, and then everybody's like, oh, okay, I'm back. Andre Ward, like you said, he's pretty much universally thought of as the second best boxer in the planet. I think skill-wise, he may be number 1, but I'm going to say Mayweather's a pound-for-pound number 1 guy. But skill-wise, Ward may be better. He's more in his prime, but he's just not given that love. He's not on that level. So
because again, he's not entertained. So I don't care if you're in Oakland, Vegas, or Wolves Rec Center. Somebody got to want to watch. Who won the Super 6 championship between Froch and Ward? Anybody?
Ward.
Ward did. Who has been on the shelf fighting in front of 7,000 to 8,000 people, and who just filled up a soccer stadium in England with 50,000?
Froch did.
Because he's entertaining. Because he brings the fight, because he gets stoppages, because he's got a big bravado personality.
But
Ward has to accept his role. I mean, it just is what it is.
All actors don't get paid the same. It's entertainment, man. And look, man, I remember during the Super 6 when I first.
You got Talib Kweli. You got Gucci Man. You know what I'm saying?
You're right.
Gucci Man, I'll say Talib Kweli. I mean, it just is what it is, man.
Hey, I don't want to draw this out. I don't want to draw this out. We've been talking about this for a minute. Been on longer than I planned for. But like I said, next show, man, I'm getting a free Andre Ward shirt, and I'm going to represent, man. I'm not going to let y'all do my guy like that. I'm going to talk to my people. I got some people with some T-shirt presses, so I'm going to get my free Andre Ward shirt.
And I'm gonna come with an Andre Ward shirt that says, "No whining, be quiet and fight."
All right. Well, with that, as Roach has clearly just ruined the rest of the show. Hey, we're gonna sign out. It's been great having you both on. Haven't talked to you in a while. Mike, we're here every week. I think Facto is going to get back into the mix as we try to work our way back on Sundays. But appreciate you guys for joining. For you guys watching, thanks for tuning in, seeing us go back and forth a little bit. Stay tuned to the St. Louis American and STLamerican.com, and make sure you subscribe here to our channel. And we're going to start getting the In the Clinch back on. Trying to do it weekly. Going to try to do it either mainly on Sundays, do some Mondays like tonight. But we appreciate you for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Peace.